Okay.
Hey, folks, it's Rick. Welcome to the strategy session. We are here on a Tuesday night, as always. Today, we had a big news day around Washington and around the country. I want to lead out, before we start with anything else tonight, on the Arizona abortion decision, because, folks, it is as outrageous as you think. I'm not an attorney, but even I can read the law. And I'm sorry, but when you base something on a law that was last extant when you could still own human beings and women couldn't vote, it's a different universe, a different moral universe, certainly. But I will say this, and I want to get Stu and Joe's opinion on this before we go too far into it. Obviously, this has really blown up Arizona. You had Steve Bannon today saying to a guest from Arizona this was very dangerous. You had Carrie Lake trying to run away from it. What do you guys think about the politics of, I mean, setting aside the morality of it, what do you think about the political impact this is going to have on the race in Arizona, both the presidential race and the U.S. Senate race?
Look, it's going to have a big impact because it's part of a pattern. They
Right.
keep making it possible for extremists to assert their agenda, which is a minority agenda, and for others to live under, which is the opposite of majority rule. It's the opposite of what conservatism was supposed to be. It's the opposite of a pro-liberty agenda. So,
Right.
is it any surprise that they've gone with the same argument the segregationists used? It's just states' rights. We have a right to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just a variation on how young girls who are tragic victims of rape end up being smuggled across state lines in some kind of underground railroad. So Trump is to go back.
Yeah.
Usually it's to go back to the 50s. This time they decided to go back to the 1860s.
Right.
But to vote for Trump is to go back.
But
And
this,
I like betting on the future.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is going to have huge implications, not just in Arizona, but everywhere. Because again, go look at their North Carolina gubernatorial nominee who
Oh,
talked
Yep.
about
woo!
he wants to go back to. He said it out loud. He wants to go back to the time when women couldn't vote. And Rick,
Right.
you started the whole segment with, "Hey guys, the whole law they're basing this on was back when you could own human beings and women couldn't vote." This is where Stu is right. This isn't going back to the 50s, man. This is going back to the dark frickin' ages, and that's where they want to go. And so it's going to have ramifications not just in Arizona, but in North Carolina. I mean, when people understand now, and I think they're starting to, how extreme this cult is, it's not a party anymore. And Trump trying to get, you know, trying to con people into thinking somehow he's a softie on abortion now is just laughable, the whole thing.
You know, I do think that we are in a moment where if you are Chris Lasavita or Susie Wiles or any of the professionals that they've hired to run this campaign, you just looked at Arizona and said, well, crap. You know, now we're going to have to figure out how to roll up the numbers somewhere else and figure this out. I think this could really, especially knowing what we know about the voters in Maricopa County, that we've done a ton of work at Lincoln Project in talking to. Joe, you were essential in that targeting model we used in 22 to help beat Kerry Lake and beat Blake Masters in that state. Those are not fanatic, hardcore,
Nope.
anti-abortion women. They are upper income. They are more educated. I think Maricopa County just became a killing ground for the Republican Party. If we and the Biden campaign play our cards right, and the pro-democracy side plays its cards right in the coming weeks and months, I think there's a way to really drive a gigantic wedge.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is a massive, I think massive and unsolvable problem now for MAGA, for Trump, and Kerry Lake, and all of them.
I mean, when even Kerry Lake is like, "This is too crazy for me," that should tell you everything.
Well, look, guys, you have to allow for the possibility they're going to repeal the 19th Amendment before the election. So let's don't, say that, it's really going to go one way or the other. This is the same thing as like Alabama.
Yep,
Right.
exactly.
Just,
IVF, the whole thing.
yeah, it's just these moments when the America they want to live in uh, ends
It's
up
unrecognizable.
showing its true face. And what people ought to think about. Okay, you've got Trump in the White House, you've got a Republican Congress. What do you think they're
Right.
going to do? They're going to do all this stuff because who's going to stop them?
Correct.
And it's this is really a choice that is as stark as any that we've seen. I think it makes the choice between Goldwater and Johnson look like, well, flip a coin. Um, and I think the Biden. I'm with Joe with all. I think Biden is going to win this, and I think he's going to win it decisively as long as we keep, as Joe says, doing the work and keep talking about these choices.
Exactly. So, sticking with the subject of abortion right now, because, we all know that Donald Trump wanted this election to be about crime, the economy, and that Joe Biden was too old. And, frankly, Biden wanted it to be about Trump is too crazy and the economy is booming. Give me some credit. Let's go forward together. Let's build a better America. I don't think either side recognized just how much abortion would become and women's issues and women's individual liberty beyond just abortion, birth control, IVF, surrogacy, all these questions around women's reproductive lives have I think become very center in this election. I mean, we've seen that a lot in the past. When in 2002 and 2004, the Democrats desperately wanted to change the subject from national security. America didn't want to change the subject. In 2012, Republicans wanted to change the subject from Barack Obama being this unique figure in American history, and America wasn't ready to change the subject. And all these things, I think the subject is being determined by both the Republicans' actions and by the responses of Americans to those actions. And I really think the field is. I felt a really fundamental shift in the last several weeks of this campaign.
Well, the
Joe?
whole thing here is look. Go back to 2022 for a second.
Mm-hmm.
The economy, inflation, gas prices, everything was far worse. I mean, in terms of the economic conditions,
Sure.
under Biden, with bad economic approval numbers, the big red wave was coming, and by the way, should have if the economy was really driving people's decisions, but
Right.
didn't happen. Why? Because MAGA crazy, Dobbs, etc. We keep talking about this. We call it, cross pressure. People
Right.
are feeling cross pressure. Yes, economically, it's tough to get through. But that woman who is concerned about living paycheck to paycheck and feels that cross pressure there now sees IVF. The whole what happened in Arizona, what's going on, the crazy North Carolina. I want to go back before women didn't vote, um, and worried about all that too. And
Right.
every time we've seen that cross pressure, and the world said, "Oh, but the economy," they've all in Ohio, in Kansas, in all state after state that cross pressure always women in particular, but a lot of young people, a lot of people out there said,
Yep.
no, I'll worry about the economy. It's hurting, but I'll make my way. I'm not letting these people take my rights away, take democracy away, and wreck the great American experiment. And I'm going to keep my reproductive freedom. I think that is the overriding thing. That I agree with you, Rick. That everybody is sort of underestimated or disregarded. But at this point, how can you keep doing that when you see election after election,
Right.
special election after,
Right.
and now Florida has abortion rights on the ballot. Um, you know, with this, again, this is what I mean about Arizona impacting everything because it all adds up with Alabama. Now you have Arizona plowing in. and now the people of Florida are going to we can keep the 6-week ban that DeSantis signed,
Right.
signs in the law, or we can vote for women's reproductive freedom and Roe v. Wade. I think we've got a good Senate candidate there on the pro democracy side with Debbie McChrystal Powell,
Yeah.
and I'm not going that Biden carries that place yet, but I do think places like North Carolina and Florida are starting to get rickety because of this issue. Just this one issue before you start piling on all the other craziness.
Tonight I saw a clip of Rick Scott on Fox, asked a very friendly question about it, and that guy was as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. He looked like he wanted to jump out of his skin when he got that question. They are very uncomfortable with it. So, Stuart, I wanted to ask you this. We had Trump come out this week and try to calibrate his abortion position by saying, oh, it's a states' rights issue. My feeling on it was that it was kind of a flop that made nobody happy on the right or the left. And he even got criticized for it from people like Mike Pence and other religious right leaders. Is this a rare misstep of Trump with his own base?
Well, I think Trump has always had this weird relationship with abortion, if only because he's the only candidate for president that I'm aware of who has talked in public about being involved in a relationship where they discussed abortion as an option when they
Right.
weren't married. Don't forget, I mean, Trump was as pro-choice as you can
As
be.
they come.
Uh, yeah. And I think that he doesn't believe in anything. So it all comes across as disingenuous. And which goes, the one thing Trump is supposed to be is, he really is genuinely a racist. He really is genuinely a guy who believes in authoritarian. So when he looks like he's being political, he looks weak. And, it went at the sort of fundamental lie that a lot of the anti-abortion movement put out there, which was all you have to do is repeal Roe v. Wade, and we'll leave it up to the states.
Right.
So, well, we're seeing what happens when you do that, like in Arizona. But also, how long did it take to have, Lindsey Graham come out and say, well, no, that's not what we meant. We wanted a national ban.
A national abortion ban.
Right.
So,
And then
it's a
Trump called
sort of
him
a
out.
double whammy. It's a tension inside the party, and any position that he takes, he's out of step with the majority of the country. Majority of the country thought this was settled law, thought that we had quit talking about it. You
Right.
didn't. Roe v. Wade was the law of the land. As the Supreme Court justices who went out very deceptively and made it appear that they also supported that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was at one time the energy in the abortion movement was with those who were against abortion, just as they were those against gun control. And both of those issues have flipped, where the numbers haven't changed that much on abortion, but the intensity has shifted dramatically. So it would make sense because you're trying to undo something now has been done and something was taken away from you you thought was right. So look, they pulled the pin on this grenade and
Yep.
rolled it at their feet, and I don't think they can run far enough to get away from the blast zone.
Yeah.
You know, Joe, there was a tweet today from the president who said the words, it blew me away seeing them in an actual tweet. Donald Trump is lying. I found
Yeah.
that so refreshing that the president,
Yeah.
under his own account, not the Biden Harris account, under the Joe Biden account, said Donald Trump is lying. And then he went chapter and verse on how Trump, is bragged about eliminating Roe v. Wade, bragged about, all the things he wants to do, talked about punishing women who get abortions. I mean, I just find it so refreshing that the president can come out and bluntly say what reporters hesitate to do, even though they know it's true.
Yeah, I mean, because it's exactly what he's doing. He's lying, and everybody. I actually think on this one, I'm glad the president said it, but I don't think there's many people out there on the right or the left who do not know he's lying. I mean, he
True.
he's
True.
bragged over and over again about overturning Roe v. Wade. The whole thing. I think the problem here for him on this issue, look, this is why he's going to lose. And let me explain it because I've been thinking this through. Um, Donald Trump, it's that old, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Sure.
And Donald Trump only has a sledgehammer. That's his only tool in his toolbox. He
Right.
cannot, there's nothing else. There's no scalpel. There's nothing. It is a frickin' sledgehammer. And it works great. It's the guy at the carnival, like wheeling down on that thing and banging the bell. And
Right.
damn it, he bangs it every time for his MAGA cult. Bang, bang, with the sledgehammer. And what this race has actually come down to is his sledgehammer gets him to like 45.
Right.
But as Ron Brownstein has said, there's 40, 54, 55% of the electorate out there, all available to Joe Biden and, yeah, the third parties and stuff. But Nikki Haley, the remnants of after he's used his sledgehammer and splattered other people away, they're breadcrumbs all over the place. Suburban women in Maricopa
Hmm.
County that Joe Biden gets to follow to the path to victory. And so this is the sledgehammer versus the breadcrumb campaign. And I mean that like quite literally. Biden is out there just banging away on Trump, collecting the breadcrumb, for pro democracy, to save the
Right.
democracy, to add it all up. And poor old Donald Trump out there with his big sledgehammer banging away. He's going to keep ringing that bell for MAGA. But on this issue, he's the sledgehammer won't work. This is
It,
his whole.
Yeah, I
This
mean,
is the
think
whole
about
problem.
what is their message to women? They thought they were going to fix the problem with women by attacking Taylor Swift. I mean,
Oh
it really, what is it that Republicans are saying to women?
no, they're coming
Um,
for you in the suburbs. They're going to get you. They're going to crime. I mean, that's what it
I
right.
is.
mean,
But
They're going to kill you.
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
and it I think it is just a bet on an America that's not there. That it's not how people are getting elected to governors. Look at Michigan, look
Hmm.
at Wisconsin, look at Pennsylvania. They're not voting for these people. They're voting for people that just seem normal. That
Right.
somebody that you could have over to your house and they wouldn't embarrass you. That you could like sit next to a plane and have a conversation with for an hour and have like a reasonable conversation. And it wouldn't have to be just about them. And people
Yeah.
are
I mean,
actually,
it's like
about doing the job, do want to work. And
it's
I
like
think
you look.
ultimately, most people just want to vote for government and forget about it.
That is the
And
luxury people used to have is you didn't have to worry about government every day. And in
yeah,
a stable
Yeah.
democracy, you don't have to worry about government and elections and politics and who's in power and who runs the police every day. You don't have to think about those things every single minute of the day. But there is a movement afoot, I think, and I'm seeing a little bit more and a little bit more every day in the Washington media community and the New York media community to sort of both sides this thing and to
Yeah.
keep trying to reframe it as it's a normal race. It's a low tax Republican versus a more taxes Democrat. It's a anti-abortion Republican versus a pro-abortion Democrat. It's really not that. And I think today we had a really interesting example, and it kind of blew up this morning on Morning Joe when Mike Allen and Jim Vandehei wrote this article for Axios, basically saying America's a lot more normal than you think. And while a lot of the article was not wrong, they didn't talk about the 8,000-ton elephant in the room that one party has attempted to seize power by violence. One
yeah,
party is a guy who's promising to be a dictator. One party is a guy who says he'll put his political opponents in jail. And it's not Joe Biden and the Democrats. There was a lot of reaction to that article today. I was curious what you guys thought about it.
It was incredible. I mean, it's just the blindness of really smart people. By the way, I mean these
Oh,
are
yeah, they're both smart
yeah, yeah,
people.
yeah. To kind of capsulate it still, and both sides are doing this, and both sides are responsible, and the rest of the country isn't as up in arms about all this stuff is and gets caught up in it. But and that there's this outrage. I mean, they actually talked about sort of like the outrage machine, but but didn't kind of like put it in. Again, the sledgehammer is in Donald Trump's hands, not Joe Biden's.
Right.
So it was just I think a swing. I agree with you. A lot of what they said that they were capturing, I think, a lot of truth, but
Sure.
to continue to ascribe it to both parties and to not place it at Donald Trump's and MAGA and, and um, the
Yeah.
willful lying. I mean, that's what they kind of is. It's almost like both sides are misinterpreting and da da da. No, it's like there's a willful attempt
Yeah, I
on
mean, look,
the
in
party to just out and out lie and gaslight the American people.
Yes.
It's not both sides.
in
Go ahead, Stu.
1936, most people were normal in Germany. Germany
Right.
was a very normal country.
Yeah.
It is a true statement that Jeffrey Dahmer and Julia Childs are both famous cooks who believe in different ingredients. Is that
Yeah.
really the truth of it?
Yeah.
I mean, is that really
Right.
like? I mean, you could pass a lie detector test. That's true. Your editor could say that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair. But does
Different
it really get
approaches,
to
but
what's
very
at
meat.
stake here? I mean,
Yeah.
does it get to what's at stake here? And I think that there is this is cynicism masquerading as optimism because it is ultimately
Yeah.
deeply cynical to look at both of these sides and say one is not evil. And it's not a lot of fun for like you and me, Rick. We were on the pro evil side for a long time.
We worked
We
for
didn't,
Evil Inc. for a long time,
yeah,
but
but
Yeah.
that's what they've turned out to be. And
But
you
it
know,
goes
yeah,
it goes straight to RFK Jr.'s New York chair, right?
that's exactly where I was going
Yeah,
next.
it's
Speaking
like
of evil,
they're both really bad. That's why you have to vote for Robert Kennedy Jr. But guess what? No matter what we do, it's going to help Trump get elected president.
right?
I mean, it's just unbelievable, just out there in the open, gaslighting,
I
trying, Trump a spoiler for Trump, and saying it out loud. I mean, completely out loud.
we put that out there yesterday to people because our research guys had gone out and really dug up a lot of the tweets and the things. It started to break yesterday, and they just went to town. And when I put it out yesterday as a post, and
Yep.
people couldn't believe it. And I had a reporter say to me like, "Oh well, you can't ascribe everything about that campaign to one staff member." I'm like, if you think that's the only staff member, the only consultant, the only money inside of the Robert F. Kennedy operation who is as MAGA or as crazy as that, I have a bridge to sell you because this is a guy who is purpose built as a spoiler, and it really is. I think. I mean, Stuart, I know we're going to have to take this guy on at some point because the media, now that No Labels is out of the picture, they're
Yeah.
bored and they want excitement. They want to go in and churn the waters with this guy. How do you think we should approach Robert F. Kennedy and the pro democracy side of it?
well, you know, it's not encouraging to those that believe 15 years of heroin addiction and being a steroid junkie helps you become president, because that's something fundamentally off about this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, um, you listen to his theories. Like if you ever make yourself, you kind of have to like stick a fork in your leg to make yourself sit there. But to listen to him talk about Ukraine and Russia,
Yeah.
Right.
it is
Unbelievable.
the weirdest combination of gibberish and just fantasy
Uh huh.
that comes from some dark place that I can't just say that people who are fighting for their freedom are good and people who are trying to exterminate them as a country are bad. I
Uh huh.
can't bring myself to do that. And I mean, look, Robert, he's a tragic figure.
He
He's had a
is.
tragic life, but that's not an excuse. There are a lot of people like that that still manage to not go out and try to ruin the country out of
True.
some sense of ego and false vanity. And look, the guy's a freak. He sounds like a freak. He looks like a freak. He has freaky ideas. And I think that's just the way you should call it. I mean, the guy's a nut.
It is. It is. I mean, I think that may be our approach, is to show people how crazy he is, because the policy stuff is just a muddle with him.
Yeah.
It's all over the board. I think we may have to show how bonkers he is. Mark Caputo came out with a thing today that in today that in 2001, Robert F. Kennedy said, "Oh, well, pig farmers in America are a greater threat to our security than Osama bin Laden." It's a good line. There you go. That'll work for you.
Yeah, no,
It, it,
it's the thing though is, and you've seen this in all the focus groups and the polling data and everything. The reality is Donald Trump really can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, and his supporters will all shrug their shoulders and say, "Well, he must have had a good reason." The Robert Kennedy Jr. is not going to pull any stuff from him. This is a calculated campaign to do one thing and one thing only: to take down Joe Biden. That's what his New York chair said. It's why the Mellon money is who funded Trump's super PAC
Right.
is in RFK
On the
Jr.
RFK, yeah.
Like, just a little bit too many coincidences here. That's why Steve Bannon, raved about Robert Kennedy Jr. as a
For
presidential candidate
months.
for months. They know that they need a 46-45 head-to-head race. They don't want this to be binary, because the Trump
Right.
people know they can't get there from here. And that's what this is really all about. And I think it's both things. One, he's crazy, but two, it is nothing but a campaign to help Trump. Spoiler for Trump,
Pure
period.
spoiler. Yep. 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 It's going to be, I mean, I think we have a hell of a week coming up. We've got Trump actually in court on a criminal case. I think his behavior will get crazier. I can't wait to see what threats he brings against the judges next week. Um, because I think he's showing a lot of cracks around the edges right now. His true social stock is tanking. So the idea he was going to suddenly have $6 billion, that's out the window. The court cases are going against him. The argumentation on his immunity case is coming up soon. That does not look promising for him. So I think we're going to have I think next week is going to be a hell of a week as the fragile nature and the cracks around this guy's brain start to get worse and worse. So, Stu, what story are you following for next week?
Listen, I think the number one story still is Ukraine. Um, you know, the idea that Marjorie Taylor Greene could be a great historical figure is really looming. Because if
Yeah,
Marjorie Taylor Greene is part of this effort and a decisive in keeping Republicans from giving decent people who are fighting for their liberty the arms to fight,
right.
she'll be a historical figure. She will. She'll have
I mean,
changed the whole trajectory of Americans' role in the world.
mm-hmm.
Um, it'll be a great and pervasive evil that will haunt Europe for generations. How long will it take America to regain trust? So, I mean, look, if Mike Johnson really is a Christian, so let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say he is a Christian. How in the world do you go to sleep at night knowing that because I didn't do anything today,
Mm-hmm.
men and women and children are dying in Ukraine in their beds?
And they're being
I,
killed
how do you
in
do that?
missile attacks on civilian targets
Yeah.
every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Mexico was doing this to Shreveport,
Right.
I mean, he would be like, well, why is Mexico still existing? Why haven't we nuked them?
Yeah.
It's a fundamental human flaw to think that the idea of having people in Congress like you is more important than saving lives. I mean,
Right.
it's no different than standing on a bridge and watching somebody drowning and not
But
jumping in the water to help them because somebody next to you might not like the idea.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
And
we've
it,
seen this, Stuart, from the beginning. I mean, this is the whole party after Trump. I mean, after Trump came down the
it
escalator.
really is.
Yeah.
Even people I have a lot of respect for who get it 90% right, they wobble. We've seen it. Good friends of ours. So
Sure.
here's this. But I'm with you. That's the thing I'm watching right now. What happens
Okay.
with Ukraine? I mean, that
I'm
is.
watching. I'm watching that, and the corollary fight of the fact that Green and the rest of the MAGA nihilists are telling people right now, we're taking him out, we're taking him down. It's going to be a moment that Mike Johnson, ironically, if the Democrats save him, he could end up doing the right thing and giving the country an example of something that isn't just uh, complete subservience and obedience to Donald Trump at all times. So it's going to be a hell of a week next week. Folks, thank you for watching the strategy session tonight. Listen to Joe Trippi's podcast, The Trippi Show. Tune in to The Enemies List, my humble podcast. And we will look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Thanks, everybody.
See you
Take care,
guys.
all.
Go in the Resolute Square shop. Get cool stuff.
Yeah, get cool gear.
It's actually very cool.
It is.